24 gemacht. Oh, ist Zeit, ja? Du musst starten, aufzeichnen. Okay, then I'd like to welcome you to this webinar this afternoon about the ecos with DALI interface. Roland Hofstetter sitting next to me, he will guide us through the presentation and the demonstration this afternoon. As an information for you, as usual in our webinars, we are recording this session and will actually publish it on our YouTube channel inside the extranet next week. Of course, we will hand over also the PowerPoint presentation to you. So instead of taking notes, you can then actually go through it again for your memory. If you have any questions during the presentations, I'm going to observe the chat function of the WebEx. Please use it. Try to give a short note in the chat, and then if necessary, I will also interrupt Roland. If it's just a question of the actual content, I will interrupt him and he can quickly respond. Or then at the end of the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session where you can also open your mic and ask your question personally. That's already what I wanted to say as an introduction, so I'd like to hand over to Roland and looking forward to an interesting presentation about new functionalities of our DALI interface.
Hello everyone, welcome to this afternoon presentation of Sauter Ecos with the DALI interface. I'm presenting the next hour the news we have released maybe about 4 weeks ago with the product information, with the firmware release 5.0 and the DALI release 3.0. I will explain you a little bit this or the goal of this webinar is to understand the latest news, to expand the DALI theory we know already, and they explain the ecos DALI functions we have introduced new, and then how to program it. I will go into case and some DALI tools to explain you all about the news with DALI 2. So this webinar is mainly for Sauter technicians, maybe product manager or sales staff attending as well, to sell the right lighting solution. And obviously some knowledge of case is required. So to the agenda, first I will wrap up the status. We are introducing the new functions since the last version we have released. This was 2021. There I have done already a video tutorial to explain the basics. Now I am explaining you some advanced functions, mainly DALI Events, which was introduced with the DALI 2 version. And at the end, or the main part, will be showing where to find which functions in case and how to do it with the external DALI tools. Questions can be raised at the end, or if you have really a question during the presentation, make the note.
Please mute your mics.
So we know all Sauter technicians, the ecos 504, 505, all the whole assortment, all the different types, sometimes have the DALI interface. Now in green, in the following slides, will be the new parts we have introduced. So with the version 3, we can say we support DALI 2 events. We can be multi-master application controller, whereas with version 2, with ecos DALI version 2, we only support the single master as a single master application controller. Due to the events we are supporting, we can now support up to 64 DALI sensors. With the respect to the DALI power supply, the limit is given by summing up the power you are using on the DALI powered system. Then we have introduced with case version 5 as well some possibilities to do automatic engineering or parameterizing of DALI. And due to this configuration, we have realized that the DALI commissioning tool, the web-based DALI commissioning tool, is too complicated in the sense it would be too complicated to expand it with the features we want to introduce. So we have reduced the commissioning tool. That's what we have done. The product datasheet for these new functions will be expanded and published, assuming in November. Coming from 2021 with the version 2.2.6 or 2.2.8, we had ideas that mass configuration could be extended. So we found a way how we will do it now with step 1. So we have a mechanism of mass configuration by triggering a backnet trigger and configure the DALI devices with the given DALI parameters we have entered in case. And with this, we can do examples like changing the hold time on all present sensors or extending that's maybe the main case we have done in the past. But as well, there was a requirement that we can have a monitoring tool. So we have extended the functions we have in Modbus and MBus with the ecos504. Now we can monitor through the report the telegrams which we are sending and getting on the DALI bus and have the log files created by ecos504. And as I said, DALI-2 events. All is written in the product information. I don't know if you have read it and if you have understand it. Maybe after this presentation it's clearer. So our USPs can be extended with the green part. So we are multi-master. We support receiving DALI-2 events. In the DALI commissioning tool, we do not parameterize the DALI devices anymore, mainly the sensors. So we don't do any enabling, disabling instances, or we cannot individually set scenes in the control gears. So it was a pity that each device needed to be configured manually, individually, and so we removed this feature. Because now with Ecos DALI and the Ecos program, we can set the default parameters of DALI parameters in a huge table, and with a backnet trigger, this table will be taken and will program, or the modem will program with this table all the connected DALI devices. And the ecos505 was supporting only with the second DALI line as additional power if you connected it together, or with two DALI lines separately. But now you can use both DALI modems on one DALI bus and use all the channels on both DALI interfaces. Now the product information explains not only DALI, but as well the two other small features we have introduced. That's the improvement of the MQTT connector, where we can individualized, subscribe to the BACnet objects, which should be published to the MQD broker. And we have a unified backstack taken or inherited from the Modulo 6 system. But these are the smaller parts. The main part on the product information on this release 5.1 is DALI together with the protocol version 3.0. And the main features, or the 7 features, are DALI multi-master, events, monitoring, telegram. So that's the content in the same order like we have in the product information. The blue parts I will take some time to explain in the next minutes. But going back to DALI basics, DALI itself is a specification for illumination for luminaries to control the lights in buildings. These buildings can be large, like in most of our cases, or it can be even only a light with an integrated sensor controlling by itself. So this is the application luminary. Then we have the application signal room, where the presence detector directly controls via broadcast a lamp or a group of lamps. That's the signal room application. In our case, we want to have an interface to our management system, to the building management system. So in a large building, not only one DALI line can cover the lighting, so we need a couple of DALI lines, and these DALI lines will be somehow mapped into the BMS system. And in our case, the ecos DALI as a programmable BACnet controller is an ideal integration product to do the lighting and to have this through BACnet visualized in the building management system. However, important at the beginning of using this system is to know what exactly does the lighting application look like. What I need to control, how do I need to control it, where are the push buttons, what are the circumstances in the building, the network. And who is the lighting controller? So who is dimming automatically the actuator given by a sensor? At the end, in terms of DALI, it means who is the DALI application controller? And even pre-sales question, who is responsible for the lighting solution? So there might be different countries where the lighting solution is done by the electrical installer, so it's not part of our piece. But there are other countries where we want to have integrated room automation, where we want to have HVAC control in the room as well, together with lighting control. And that's mainly our integral room automation. So to have integrated room automation, we can use DALI products. So the ecos is the application controller and even supplies the DALI bus. And we have maybe some push buttons, input devices. But the question is, does the push button switch directly the control gears? Or even, is the light sensor also a light controller? And at the end, the question is, the ecos the only application controller or just an additional DALI master? Since we are multi-master capable, we can even have the ecos as a device to do some higher level lighting monitoring or higher level lighting control. Let's say in existing DALI system, we can now add the ecos to the DALI system provided by the lighting engineers, installers, and the ecos will only do the light turn off during night commands. Yeah. However, you need to remember that DALI is not a prioritized system, so it's an event-based system. So the last command given to the control or to the control gear is ending up to the light. So all this is specified in the IEC standard and is promoted through the DALI Alliance group. Here I have a new screenshot, so there are new parts published since last time, 2021. So we have a couple of published parts like the part 252 or 53. As well, there are some color sensors or channel pulse sensor now part of the DALI-2 standard. And to understand the terms, I recommend maybe to read the white papers as well published on the Alliance group to understand what I'm talking about or what we should know. So, but since 2023, we are, Sauter is as well the DALI Alliance member as an associated member. The goal will be that we can register or certify our product as application controller as well. So going to the standard, we have actually 3 parts or two main parts. So the main part is the part 101. That specifies the system with the power supply and with the bus communication. And the part 2 is the 102. These are specifying the control gears with its different types, the subparts, 200 series. And we are supporting there all the yellow marked parts is supported by ecos-DALI. So all the basic parts from 201 to 209 are supported. Now with ecos-DALI version 3, we support as well the part 220, 252, and 253. And if we say part 220, that's a centrally supplied emergency operation. There we have as well the 202 new supported, that's a self-contained emergency lighting, where we have functions provided in the ecos, so you can write or you could write applications for emergency lighting. And due to the support of events, we now can support without any restriction push buttons and occupancy sensors, whereas we had with ecos-DALI version 2, we needed to pull those information from the sensors. And now with the event, it's more efficient. It does not need bus power communication traffic. Coming to the communication. So normally there are 2 ways. So the application controller commands to the right side in blue with a forward frame, the control gear. So it turns on the light. And with a status feedback, with the backward frame, we can get the status from the light or from the control gear. And the application controller as well could pull with a 24-bit forward frame, the input devices with the sensing elements in it. So we could pull the illumination on the sensor, or we could pull the presence status of the sensor, and we'll get the value back with the backward flow. Now, with DALI version 3, ecos-DALI version 3, we support the events. That means that the device, the input device itself, sends if the sensor changes the value directly to the network. And when we configure the application controller to receive this value, then we can use the presence detection or the push button switch. I might have here a couple of links to DALI's quick start guide or to a learning video, which is only in German, or to some web pages mainly from Lunatone or Tridonic. They have a couple of interesting white papers. So if you're new to DALI, you might get those lectures. Good. Now, the functions we are specifying now with ecos-DALI version 3 will be written or explained, not explained, but will be listed in the product data sheet. So we have there all the commands we are supporting and the queries. So now this product data sheet is still in work, but will be published soon. As well, in the list, we have the mapping from case or from backnet objects to the commands to DALI. And all the data types are listed in the product data sheet, or not all, but when we take case engine, we can see the view in each object type, like binary output, analog output, multi-state input, or positive integer value. There we have all the data types which we are supporting to control or to get the values from DALI devices. Now I show you the new functions we have. So these are the basic backnet objects. So if I go into, for instance, analog input, and I go to the source, data source, I have here DALI selected. Now with these data types can be chosen. And if you see now, the list is with version 3 a little bit larger. So these are all the old data points, but if you scroll up, there are the main data points to be used. So we have these are already existing data points, but now we start with supporting the emergency lighting data type 1 specified in 202 and the 220. So we can read out emergency status from to do emergency lighting. But the main functions we are proud of are these events. So now we are supporting DALI-2 events. That means a button being pushed on the DALI can be received by the ecos-DALI interface, and we can use this information to control the lights, to turn on even a ventilator, or to set the temperature in a temperature controller. For instance, with this absolute input event value. So there are now more possibilities to extend our application, our ecos. I take another example for the positive integer value. I take the output. There might be other functions we have added. So there are output functions to command emergency lighting, or to command some data types. This is as well emergency lighting. So these are new command functions possible with it. But as well, this auto config is a key feature. So this triggers the mask configuration. I'll explain later. So just to remember, for an output, I have here the trigger auto config, and this triggers the mask configuration. Going back to the slides, since we have now explained these data types, extensions introduced with version 3. The application integrated room automation. I have raised questions. Is the controller the only application controller, or is the light sensor also light controller? Does the push button switch directly control gears? So now we recommend, yes, the ecos should be the only application controller. So it's integrated room automation, including lighting. Is the light sensor also light controller? So itself, there exists some DALI sensors that can do dimming, automatic dimming control as an application controller, so APC, abbreviated with APC. And now if we combine those, it would hurt. So that's our recommendation. No, the DALI sensor must deactivate the application controller functionality. And the push button as well can be an application controller. There we, as of now, we recommend as well that the controller is deactivated, or there are no direct commands given to the DALI control gears, because we don't have this yet experienced. So this mixed mode that the push button directly commands the control gear and the ecos, we don't know. So right now we think that the events will be received by the ecos, and the ecos will command the lamp. So that's our recommendation. So deactivate all application controller functions in your DALI net. Activate the events for presence detection, occupancy, the push buttons, and maybe as well the illumination sensor or the analog or absolute input device, like a dimming wheel. So these instances need to be enabled to use the events from those devices. And deactivate, however, all unused instances, and disable the event filters you don't need or you don't use. So now maybe you ask me, what are you talking about? So that will be explained just in short. So the ecos itself is a programmable application controller with DALI multi-master interface. Ideally to do individual applications being integrated in our BMS system. Sometimes in the projects we are comparing ourselves with BACnet DALI gateway, and these gateways are nice as well. However, their application is fixed and is not flexible enough. Maybe it fits to your project, or the electrical installer has used it, so you can integrate it with ecos as well, or you don't need it. However, our Sauter does not have own DALI devices, so we need somehow flexibility to use control gears or even use DALI devices. And this flexibility needs as well some more engineering or more flexibility in engineering. That was the reason why we have decided that the DALI commissioning tool, like we have it now with the web interface, is only for addressing. So we have removed the creation of locators and addresses to create those individually from bottom up. We have as well reduced the configuration for DALI groups, or removed it. And as well, we have removed the control gear configuration with individual parameters like scenes and so on. And yeah, the proprietary sensors are not scanned anymore, or not scannable anymore, because this feature in the background we have disabled for the version 3. So whenever the ecos starts, it checks if there is a version 2, then we have all the functions we had already. And if it detects, if the firmware of the ecos detects a version 3 on the protocol modem, then we disable those functions. The reason behind it is there are so many DALI parameters, therefore the DALI web tool was not ideally used, or not ideally to extend it. And whenever we have done something in the commissioning tool, in the web-based commissioning tool, those parameters sent to the DALI device is not, or was not, synchronized with the planning in case. So in our vision, we try to have all the parameters in case engine, and the data set as well for the DALI devices is in the whole project. That's why we have started the mass configuration, and and within case, whereas mass configuration with the web interface wasn't feasible enough. That means we need to split the engineering. So we have the commissioning tool maybe for addressing, and for parameterization of the DALI devices, we need either the manufacturer's DALI tool. I have here mentioned Cockpit, that's the one from Lunaton, or we can use the autoconfig function together with case and the ecos plan. Now going to the single features we have implemented in version 3. So the DALI multi-master, the system itself can have maybe one application controller or can have two application controllers. So with one application controller, the system is kind of is as well kind of a single master, whereas with two application controllers we are multi-master, and with there are existing as well multi-master application with an integrated input device, so a sensor. So the sensor itself can be application controller and directly control keys based on the sensor information. As said, our use case is ecos DALI as multi-master, as a single multi-master, as an application controller with only one application controller. Okay, there is a slight difference between being multi-master and being application controller. So all sensors are with capability of application controller are multi-master capable as well. Okay, so that means for us, if you order some DALI devices, mainly sensors, you can order or should use the models, they call it BMS or instant only sensors. Whereas the manufacturer has as well maybe sensors, they call it APC as an application control. And then deactivate the instances which are not used, and this configuration of this event is being done with the DALI tool, and the manufacturers mainly give you those tools to configure their devices. Now to do some real values, I have here on the table my demo board from 2021. I have a DALI interface and use a Lunaton's Cockpit tool, but as well I have a case and show you the next feature, or try to explain the next feature. So an event is a sender. So an event is a sender, an input device sends an event, and the receiver is the ecos, the application controller, and to get the event they must align. So an event sent out to the bus has an event scheme, and the event scheme says I'm a telegram coming from a device with the instance address Y it's set, or I'm an event coming from a device having the instance type occupancy sensor. So there is an event scheme that specifies the telegram sent to the bus. And on the other side, ecos needs to know this event type or this event scheme, and needs to know that this event he can use. So the ecos then can feed with the dispatch functionality within the modem, can feed the backnet objects. With the event filter, depending on the sensor or the input device type, there are 1 to 9 event filter functions. These can be set as well. So at the bottom right, there is an event filter for a push button. and for an occupancy sensor, and the occupancy sensor could send occupied, unoccupied, movement, no movement, and this can be enabled or disabled. So these are two parts which need to fit to the receiver, to our ecos. And as well, obviously, the instance parameters need to be activated, and some parameters like hold time, hysteresis, button action need to be configured. Just a side note that the events are always sent to the bus with a 10-bit value. So there is no differentiation between a larger bit resolution or lower bit resolution. It's always 10 bits. So you need to scale the information coming from an event to the real value from the sensor. And instant type 0 is a generic type, and it's not standardized how the events are generated within this type 0. However, the standard says how the mechanism needs to function. So let me try to show this small part. So I have now connected as well a USB DALI interface, which is supported by this DALI tool, by this manufacturer. Sorry about this. And now I have scanned my demo board, and I see now I have here a DALI switch, which is like a push button. And here, as I said, here it's indicating if the instances are enabled, and they need to be enabled to send out events, and if the application controller is disabled. In this case, I have it done corrected. So here is the indication. So for instance, this sensor does not have an application controller because it's not present, and all instances are enabled. To disable, I now could disable the switch cross application or enable the application controller. So if we would enable the application controller on this push button, then I can send from the push button directly to control gears commands by configuring button 1, 2, 3, and 4. However, in our case, we have it disabled, the application controller function, and we use only the instances and the events. So this device has 4 instances, means four sensors, so push buttons. And this push button can send out events only if I have enabled those events. And here I see as well which type, instance type, this instance number has. It's a push button regarding to 301. And then I have here instance groups, and here the event schemes I tried to explain before. So the default mode is not used, instance addressing, but these two instance scheme can be used with the ecos, or even these 4 can be used with ecos, but the main use case relies right now on device addressing. That means the event is sent by the device number and the instance type. So in the case of a push button where we want to differentiate the push buttons from the device, we need to send the event by the device number and by the instance address. And whenever I push the push buttons 1 or up, then it sends out the event comes from DALI device 3 instance 0, and it's an event depending on the settings on the event filters. So for instance, I can here have events enabled or the event filter is set with a button released and button pressed, or I can have short press, double press, long press, or even the button is stuck. And with this configuration, we can configure the push button. If we would enable double press, then I need to configure as well a double timer, how fast this double push needs to be done. So it will be detected as a double press, and then the information is sent to the bus. So if we go into a sensor, then maybe a sensor has more events, and depending on the event number, I have maybe a light sensor, or I have a temperature sensor. That's at instance type 0. That means it's a generic type. And now we see a generic type needs as well a generic or a generic engineering. And since this tool fits to the provider of the sensor, I can here have the proprietary settings done as well. Or even have functions like getting the values with the tool. Yeah. So right now, I just started and didn't check if my bus interface is living.
Nein, warte mal. Da brauchst du nicht. Da bekommst du weg.
So my bus interface's USB is not.
You have to restart.
Ja, das ist schon drin. So anyhow, I can still show it by offline data. Check again. I don't know. In the morning it was working. Now I don't need the time to troubleshoot. So, but still to explain you that the receiver and the The receiver and the sender needs to match to each other. I load now this application again, and there the instance, and here I've tried to explain that the event scheme needs to fit to each other. So that means if we configure the event scheme in the sensor, this event scheme need to match as well in the data source. So now we are here in the up, in the push button up. There we have now the possibility to not only use the short address where we would call the push button, but now we can receive the events, and we need to select the same event scheme like we have configured in the sensor. In our case of the push button, we choose device address and instance address, and then it uses here the instance 0 is the push up button, and I take the information as a button information. The binary input can only be on or off, so push button pressed or released. Whereas I would have positive integer value, I could have events pressed, and then I get the information as a numeric value, and the numeric value is explained in the product information, which value is which event function. So reading in the product information, I see the values would fit. So event button press is either on off, button released pressed, or it could be short press, double press, and then I will get the number 2, 5, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15, depending on the event information being sent to the bus. Yeah, now we should see this. Now, as you see, I go online, I've configured the push buttons, and if I push the up button, you see toggling the DALI 5 up to 1. I see the toggle will cache the value, the change, and I see as soon as I press, the information is coming, so I don't need to call the push button. As well, to the right, I would see as well that we have here the information 2, and if I go to a trend log, for instance, trending this value, I see I have here values 9, 2, depending on the long short press. I get this information here new, so there was a not pressed, and then a double press was given here, and so we can take this information and do some programming behind in the programmable ecos. I have as well analog value. I see here from a illumination sensor, it reads 600 lux, and this was the information I'm getting with calling. So every 10 seconds I get a new value, and this information is by event. So there I have event source, address, device address and instance type. Since this sensor has only one presence detector, I can even choose the instance type. And if I pick here lux, it knows the type. So it's irrelevant to choose this instance number. And once I do this, I see the same information, or more or less the same information. If I do a test with my lamp from my mobile, I can now give light to it, and we see immediately the sensor is changing with events, but with polling it lasts much longer, or this given polling rate I have configured. There's only a way. What is the benefit of events? And now, in addition to this, we know that this polling information is a 15-bit value, and the event information is a 10-bit value. So I need to scale to get the same value. I need to scale the information, the event information, with additional 5 bits, and 2 powered by 5 is 32. So I multiply the value, the event value, with 32, so I get the same value. Obviously, as I said in the product information, we might lose a little bit of accuracy or resolution. However, for lighting control, constant light control, plus minus 50 lux is far away enough. So that's all about events. Then we come to the monitoring. We know ecos reader, and we know ecos-Snoopy with Modbus and MBus. In the same way, we have extended the DALI monitoring. So we have a VPAR tunnel we can open on the ecos. There you need ecos5 We can start now DALI COM1, and it opens up a virtual port. We need to be in firewall service mode, and we need to check if the virtual port was opening. And then with the BACnet browser, we command the soldered CM status to 100 in the IO unit object, and then we start the command ecos-Snoopy, opening the virtual port in a native mode, and then we get the output in a simple logging file. And there, for troubleshooting or for giving you some help online, we might use this information, and you might get as well some information that something is wrong, or you are calling the bus too much, similar to the monitoring tool built in to the cockpit. Now the fourth function is the mask configuration triggered with a BACnet object. For instance, a positive integer value output. And it's taking all the global DALI device parameters table, and it triggers the table to be so that it writes the given parameters to the DALI devices. Everything is handled within the modem and BACnet, and the table configuration in case is only being the tool to trigger and to program it. I can show you short. There is the auto config, so we can have input. For instance, 303 means it triggers to configure all device types based on 302, means it triggers the occupancy sensors. So whenever I want to set the hold timer, I need to send a trigger to the PIF with auto config. And with this trigger, it sends all the parameters for device type 303, and these parameters are defined new in the DALI system table, protocol system table. Now, this is the first version, and so we have a huge list from all parameters we are supporting to configure the DALI devices. So depending on the standard, on the DALI type, device type, here 102 are the base control gears and 202 up to 220 are the control gears device types, and then here are the base sensors and the 4 different sensor types. And I see here I have the hold occupancy sensor, hold timer, how is it? Here I can say it's 10 seconds, whereas the default value would be 15 minutes. And so when I want to change the default coming within the device, I can specify it here, and then with a download, the table goes to the modem, and with the trigger, I can trigger that this table or the configuration here specified or the part of the configuration. So all these 303 parameters will be sent to the 303 devices. So, and then the next feature is the smart data, DALI smart data. So there is extended DALI types, 251 and 252, which have the control gears can save data information like for energy reporting or for diagnostic and maintenance. There are information values stored in the memory banks of the control gears. And now with ecos version 3, you can read out this energy reporting data or active power data, everything specified in the standard 252 and 253, or most everything can be read out with the parameters. Yeah, obviously, if you are not sure what is supported, then you just go to the value object. Smart data, and you take a positive integer vector, and then you see smart value. You pick up the data type you want to read smart value data, and within a second parameter you tell from which memory bank you want to read out. So depending on your control gear, these memory banks can be read out with this information. So here summarized in this slide. And now the last function is the emergency lighting function. There would require another day. So I have only one slide. So mainly the DALI specifies emergency lighting, how the control gears, if they are emergency lights, the control gears for the emergency lights or emergency lights and lights together, then this is specified in these two standards. One standard says it's a battery driven and it controls the test mode automatically within the control gear, and the 220 is a centralized testing function. So depending on which system is used, those control gears are placed. And there are different types of control gears. One is dimmable and not dimmable, or it is in addition luminary, or it is only for emergency lights. And yeah, there are main tests, safety tests. There is one duration test that actually tests only how long the battery lasts when emergency mode is given, and the functional test if the emergency light is functioning. And these to spin around this state diagram, there needs some functions and readouts, and we are supporting now the function, so you can program these functionality which are required for emergency lights. Now, the steps for engineering, that was explained in the product information a little, and now I've just changed step 5 with the green part. So since we don't configure the devices anymore with the commissioning tool, with the web-based commissioning tool, it's only for addressing, and then parameterization can be done with the ecos auto config trigger or with the external DALI tool. So that's the part I've changed. And mainly we still think it's a top-down topology. However, the beauty of DALI is that all the parameters reside in the DALI devices. So normally the tools should read out the parameters on the device before they would change something. Otherwise, you are brute forcing the device being as you want to be. Good. That's now all the information I have from the product information. Now I come to the open points or the next steps. Now we have all the base functions. You can create event-based applications or read out smart data or use the emergency functions to do some integrating of emergency lighting. So these 4 use cases could be done in a lighting solution in libraries. And that's what I'm calling you. If you have an application, please share it. If you have used the functions, let me know. And if you have a requirement that emergency lighting will be placed, then we might help you to get this plan, this program written, or just the concept at least. And in the next step, we try to have a DALI commissioning tool built into Case or on a Windows platform, so we can use the DALI application directly. We are synchronized with the Case engine data, so it helps us to save the data within the project. And obviously, in our case, it would make sense to make the tooling more efficient for large buildings. And the certification is a wish from my side that our DALI application controller is certified as well. It gives us much, gives us a point more if we want to win tenders. In the roadmap, we will communicate these 2 parts, so the extending the protocol to be better integrated into Case. There we need as well a larger hardware, most likely, and then we want to be certified. And the tooling to DALI might be as well a next step. However, right now I'm starting the specification. Since we know what we have now, I'll ask you in the future how you would like to have it. First inputs we have gotten this morning, and I'm looking forward to get feedback from you as well. So that's the slide to remember. all the features we have now in this DALI V3. Now I'm finished with my presentation. Are so far questions or feedback or points to be discussed?
Very quiet. You can also open your mic to ask a question.
All asleep.
Was it so boring?